Today's guest is a multidisciplinary stylist with not only interior styling skills, but she's also a trends expert, paints stunning pieces of art and runs in-person workshops, and so much more. As a valued member of the Inside Stylists Community, she brings a wealth of creativity and experience to her work. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about her styling journey today. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Nico Williams from Studio Dayze to the show. Hello, Nico.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. I have to say, for people listening, I have to just describe your background looks absolutely stunning. And you were just saying that you're in rented accommodation, so it looks amazing. Got all like beautiful pictures in the background and plants and lights and all of that. So it looks really lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my landlord's quite flexible with what I can do to some extent. So yeah, try and make it as cozy as possible. I've just got an art studio as well, which means I've been able to move so much stuff out, which has just been so lovely.
That sounds amazing. I would love a separate space from work just so that I can you clear the decks at home, and when you come home, you're at work, and when you're kind of in a studio, you're doing your studio stuff.
Especially painting. Like my studio is a mess, but it's meant to be. So
yes, creative mess.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mentioned that you're an interior stylist. Maybe we could start with the kind of work that you do, because styling is so varied and your career is very interesting. So maybe we could start there.
Yeah, sure. So predominantly at the moment, I do styling for events and then interiors. So I only sort of started my freelance journey kind of last April. A friend of mine who's an interior stylist put me in touch with this agency. So I've been doing a lot of really, really fun projects with them. They work with lots of big brands. And so it's kind of anything sort of brand activation wise. If they're launching a new range, they'll usually kind of get like a really cool space and sort of amp it up. So that's really exciting because it's very, very creative. It's quite conceptual. So it's really big picture ideas and just, yeah, anything goes. So it's really, really fun working on those. And then with the interiors, I work at the moment with an interior architect practice. So they do commercial and residential projects. So at the moment I'm doing a residential project, which has been so fun to work on. And coming up, we've got a couple of restaurants that I'll be working with them on as well. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. And yeah, hopefully I can get into doing more shoots going forward as well, which will be really, really fun.
What were you doing before you got into styling?
So before that, I worked at Not on the High Street for 5 years. I was a homewares product developer. And then I also moved into their trend department. So then I was overseeing all of the kind of trend content. So we had like a trend hub that would feed ideas and information into all the small businesses that kind of sell on there. So kind of overseeing that really, and then coming up with kind of concepts for ranges that we might have on site and just kind of owning that remit. So yeah, it was such a fun company to work for. I loved it. And yeah, I didn't plan on going freelance. I can talk about that as well. But yeah, leaving was quite a big decision. And then now I've kind of fallen into styling and doing lots of creative stuff. It definitely feels worth it. But yeah, all of that experience was so valuable working there as well.
I'm always fascinated by trends. I kind of follow quite a lot of trend companies, and I find it really interesting. I teach styling at UAL, and trends always comes up, and people are like, well, why are trends important? Because like interior designers are very much, you don't follow a trend because you don't want to be changing your cushions and your curtains every 6 months because the trends has changed. And I'm like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about knowing what is coming into the shops, because that's what when you're styling, that's what you're going to be able to get to, that's what you're going to be able to buy and stuff. So I'm going to completely go off on a tangent because I'm so fascinated. So I'm just going to take a personal question here. So how do you find the trends when you were doing this position? Because it's on the high street is lots of small kind of, well, they're quite just creative people, aren't they, who sell beautiful things, small companies. So they could be just beaded pieces from Africa, or they could be handmade bags from remnants from fabrics. It's so diverse. So how do you do trends for that sort of area?
Yeah, certainly. So there's definitely different remits to it. And I still do trend forecasting now, but I work for a global agency where we cover fashion and interiors. But when I was doing it in-house, you very much tailor to what the company needs. So it would be, so there's quite a few different remits. So for some of the partners that sold there that might be kind of sourcing product, just kind of showcasing some of the cool brands that they could source from, because it's not all makers on there. Some people have small boutiques, for example. And then the other part of it, I guess, was just kind of helping the partners to think of ideas that would be commercially viable for Not on the High Street. So they have quite specific markets for like gifting, for example, that do very well. So kind of just making sure that everybody has a fair chance to sell on there and they understand what performs well, give them some ideas of how they could maybe tailor their product to sell on that specific website. So yeah, it was kind of a lot of content creation, really. And it involved kind of forward thinking and giving them ideas about things they might not have thought of, but then also aligning it very much to that proposition. So we did get to kind of travel a lot to different design fairs. So would kind of, as well as that, show maybe suppliers they could get more sustainable fabrics from, or just kind of highlighting them to what's out there. And a lot of small businesses don't have the time to maybe, commit to the research as much as they would like. So it's kind of just giving them all of these resources that can try and help them and support them, like with the proposition that they offer. So yeah, it was a very, very cool job, and it changed a lot over the years. But yeah, what I do now in terms of trend is quite different, in a sense that I now look at a lot of image research, but we do a lot of cultural research as well. So it's kind of informing the client of what customers might be thinking and how they can, tailor their range to that, for example. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing to work in, and it does mean that I have a very, very good knowledge of brands across the market. So that's always really helpful when it comes to styling.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's the kind of thing you can't switch off from. So when you're kind of out and about or you're watching TV, you're kind of going to be picking up on things that other people would just go, oh yeah, that's nice wallpaper. And you'd go, oh, but that's geometric, and geometrics have been here. And then we saw them over there in America, and then we saw them in America. And it's like, you never switch off from it.
No, and especially social media. I mean, a huge amount of my job is looking on Instagram, because you just get the newest images. You can look at publications and go out to exhibitions and so on, but generally speaking, the newness can be found quite easily on Instagram. You just have to sort of know where to find it. So yeah, I wish I didn't have to spend as much time on social media, but I also get such a buzz from it. And because I do cross market, it is really exciting.
So you mentioned fashion and interiors, and you could have kind of gone into either really with your background. How did you get into interiors?
So when I was at Not on the High Street and I was doing product development, as I mentioned, I was on the kind of homewares team. I think I've always had more of a love for interiors anyway. I used to do a bit of textile design. So that's kind of, and my textile design was very much interiors, like wallpaper, florals, and so on. So I think that was always, and I mean, as much as I research fashion, I wouldn't really say I'm the pinnacle of fashion myself. So I think styling wise, it just felt kind of natural to go into interiors. And I've had lots of little side hustles along the way where I've started putting my designs onto cushions. And I had a vintage homewares Instagram at one point where I was sourcing and selling vintage and then would kind of style it. So I think it was always kind of a natural choice for me to sort of fall into that. And I feel like I'm drawn more to interiors when it comes to styling. But yeah, I think if I was going to branch out ever so slightly, it might go more into doing a little bit more set design and kind of props. But yeah, I don't really see me going down the fashion styling route.
How did you transition into interior styling then? Because it's quite a specific job. How did you go from kind of the trends and what you were doing and Not on the High Street to doing the actual styling?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got quite a great network. I've worked in design for about 14 years. I've done loads of different jobs within high street suppliers. And I think, so basically I was actually due to start another job at a creative agency. And whilst working my notice, I got made redundant before I'd even started. So I was like, oh, okay. So my plan was, right, well, I've done textile design, so I'll try and do that. So I made lots of kind of wallpaper designs and was frantically trying to get some clients. And so yeah, just through friends really in the network. I think a lot of my friends have seen what I'm capable of, have seen me sort of styling through my vintage shops and stuff. So the opportunities just kind of came to me quite quickly, which is amazing. So yeah, in particular, the architecture practice that I work with is a friend of mine, so that's been amazing. And yeah, I've got some really, really cool projects ahead with that. So I think the only thing I'm yet to sort of do a bit more of would be shoots, but I did used to work on a lot of photo shoots when I was not on the high street, so it's definitely not new to me. But yeah, I guess in that respect, excuse me, I guess in that respect, I've been kind of lucky, but I think it is a credit to how much I've invested learning lots of different skills along the way as well.
Yeah, it kind of, everything builds on, one thing builds onto another, and then it creates this kind of styling skill that you might not have even thought you had. But then it's like, especially, I really love vintage stuff as well. So it's like, if I'm styling a shoot, I will nearly always find something like an old piece of furniture that I can paint that will look, because I think we are almost the same person, but me without the trend knowledge.
Yeah, no,
I love
I
sourcing vintage, and if I found an old piece of furniture for a shoot that I could paint to be the right color, it's like that's my painting fix and my vintage fix. And
yeah,
like, I think there's an element of being able to mix and match like a product with an old piece of furniture or an old tray or whatever it is to get your style. So it kind of all adds on to each other, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely.
I was going to ask you how you got into your residential styling, but you shared that. And before we started recording, you were saying that you have to sign NDAs for some of that, which is really difficult as someone who wants to showcase what you're doing. But you and I hear this quite a lot. I hear it a lot with interior designers when they are doing projects for people. They don't want their homes to be shared because they want to keep it private. They don't want people to see all the expensive furniture and artwork and things that they have. So they have these kind of clauses where you can't shoot them. And that makes it very difficult for you as someone who wants to kind of showcase all the hard work you've put into something. And then it's like, look what I've done, but you can't see it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, and I think because I've only just started my journey, I think that's what we were chatting about earlier. I've done loads of really exciting projects since I started, but yeah, haven't really got that many tangible images that I can show. But I think for me, what I've been trying to do so I've been reaching out to a lot of photographers just through my network. So I've hopefully got a couple of kind of test shoots and stuff planned, which will be great because it will be kind of uncapped creativity. And then I also run creative workshops, which for me was kind of like a fun way that I can sort of give it a little bit of a sneak peek as to what I'm sort of doing. But yeah, hopefully as I sort of continue on my career path, I will get some bits together. And I think I just need to keep drawing on my network as much as possible because they're, without seeing necessarily a portfolio, they're always willing to sort of give me the work, which is very, very helpful. But as I say, I think I've had such a diverse career to date and I've done so many different things. I think they already kind of know what I'm capable of. So that's always nice. But yeah, it is quite tricky. So hopefully I need to try and get a few clients under my belt where I can sort of share the work as well.
Yeah. I think word of mouth is probably the biggest way most people get work, because you might work with an architect who will recommend you to an interior designer, or you'll work with a photographer who will recommend you to an art director. And that's just, I mean, that's how my career's always been. It's always been word of mouth. So, but that's brilliant that you're, I know you're really busy at the moment. So it's really good that you're busy and kind of it's working. What you're doing is working. So that's great.
Yeah. And I think freelancing suits me because I've got lots of different skills. When people ask me what I do, I'm like, well, this and this and this and this. And it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I've also got ADHD. So for me, it just fits me down to the ground because I just sort of hyper-focus on one thing, something else. So I do think when you're creative and you've got so many different things, freelancing is definitely a good way to go. But yeah, I'm quite lucky that, if I'm not styling one week, I'm usually doing something with trend, or I might be doing some other stuff. So definitely, yeah, I think for anyone who wants to get into styling, I guess it's always good to have a couple of other things that you can offer, around that remit as well, just to ensure that you're always getting the work.
Yeah, and they're all connected. So it kind of, you could be on a shoot and then you could mention that you do trends, and then they're like, oh, we're looking for someone who's doing trends, or we're looking to study an area or something. You never know who needs something completely different. And workshops as well. There's lots of stylists who run workshops at like big press shows. Like, I know you do candle painting, and that is something that people have been doing at press shows recently. And that you never know what people want to do. So you can kind of style the event and then stay to teach a workshop for all the journalists that come. So
yeah, I've been trying to get into live illustration as well because I have worked as an illustrator. I've done so many different
my
things.
goodness, you really have, haven't you?
To be honest.
I thought I'd done
But,
a lot.
yeah, so I try to get into. I would love to do some live illustration for brand events as well. So yeah, there's so many opportunities that I think it's very exciting at the moment. I'm intrigued to see what comes to fruition this year, to be honest.
So what I can't remember if we talked about you doing events before or after, but you styled events for people. I know you've done stuff for M&S and lots of different brands. What's your favourite thing to work on?
So I guess I've done some with the fashion side of stuff, and then we've done stuff for food launches, and I love the food ones. There's so many logistics because often they'll be serving food at the event, and they tend to be just really, really creative as well. So I think, I did the Christmas food press launch last year, which was like a market hall, and there was like 10 or 8 or 10 different stations that all had different themes. So it was just so fun because it was Christmas, so you can imagine it was like super, super creative. I also got to bring in like my illustration skills and did some large scale illustrations that we used as like part of the set design. So I really love the food ones, I think, because it's kind of combines a little bit of the kind of homewares and interiors, but then you're also obviously doing food as well, and they kind of combine departments. So that's always a really fun one to work on.
I'm always saying when I'm talking to people who are getting into styling, it's like you don't realise how much the skills you have play into why you get hired. I always think of there's an interior stylist I interviewed on the podcast called Relly, and he's really colourful, and his home's really colourful and everything, and he's French. He's got this fantastic accent, and he's just really all vibrant colours. And I always say, if you're a brand and you have a really colourful range of products, like he did a lot with Le Creuset, and they would bring out a new colour all the time. He's an instant, you would just go to him because he's a colourful person and he styles colourfully. And that is what Le Creuset would be looking for. So if people know that you can do illustrations and they want that sort of thing, or whatever else it is they know you for, that's why they kind of hire you. And it's really good to have all those skills. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It does make it more fun as well. I just love kind of uncapped creativity. So that's why I've got so many ideas. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can get just some of my own kind of like personal projects going this year as well, just to sort of showcase it a little bit more.
Yeah, test shoots are brilliant, really good. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before. I know I share it a lot when I teach, but there is a photographer I work with, and we call them test. Well, we don't call them test shoots. We call them I can't remember what we call them, but we were shooting together once a month to do photo shoots of whatever we wanted, just so we could kind of get a fix of doing our own thing. And he told me he used to live in South Africa, and he did a shot of a violida mop and in a bucket leaning against a sink. Now in South Africa, the light is beautiful, and I'm sure the kitchen was really lovely, but it's just a plastic mop. And he did this shot and he sent it off to a picture library, and he has been making money on that mop picture for something like 15 years. So we were all like, let's go take some pictures and send them off to the picture libraries and then just see if anyone wants to use it. But if someone's doing a cleaning feature and they need a picture of a mop, they don't want to have to go and book a studio to shoot a mop. They just go and buy that image. So those test shoots are great. But we tended to do like lots of foodie ones, because food's really good fun to do. My daughter was vegan for a while, so we did a whole range of vegan recipes, and we would do cakes, and then I would do a lot of crafting because I quite like making things. So I would like sewing. So we would do the step-by-step things, and it's really lovely to have something, especially if you've got like a quiet time, which when we're freelance, we do have those quiet times.
Yeah.
So it's almost like get your creativity going, and then you take the pictures and you kind of get the fix from doing the whole prep and the shooting it and having the finished product. But then you chuck it into a photo library and think, could make some money out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the thing. That's like, I think for anyone as well that wants to get into styling or freelance life, I think trying to think of passive income as much as possible, because like you say, on the downtime, you can just kind of get going with something like that, make the product. And if you can do something that you can just keep reselling, it's a bit of a game changer. So, I mean, I very much need to take my own advice now. I've been thinking about lots of different ideas, but yeah, anything like that, or using, like you say, kind of surplus imagery or anything and uploading it to those kind of sites. It's always just worth spending like a day just doing that.
And it also, it really builds your connection with photographers, because a lot of the time when I'm saying to people, you're doing a test shoot and you're practicing getting your portfolio together, I mean, people who are really new to it, and I say, go and find a photographer assistant and stuff. But actually, I've had big name photographers who are saying to me, let's do a test shoot, because they're the same. They still want to be able to kind of get their fix and do shoots that they want to do, not just what you're being directed to do, because they're quite constraining for creative people. It is still a lovely creative process, but just having that kind of control over a shot. You call it uncapped creativity. I love that. I'm going to use that in the future. I wrote it down. That's how cool I like that phrase. So where is your favourite place to prop when you're doing your styling?
So I really love, it depends what I'm doing really, but I really like looking on Facebook Marketplace if I was doing anything for interiors, like you say, just because you can get some real gems on there. And then outside of that, I really like looking on Maison Flaneur and Glasset, just because they have really nice curated artisan makers. So I think obviously, you know, you've got kind of more generic brands, which are great, but I think adding, if you want to add some character, there's so many beautiful ceramics and just lovely kind of like artisanal pieces on there that just really amplify whatever you're working on. So I've definitely been utilizing that a lot for the interiors project I'm working on, and I've actually got to source lots of art for this project, which is really fun. So I've been looking on Saatchi and First Dibs quite a lot as well for that. But yeah, I think generally speaking, I like to try and, it's probably the not in the high street that's stuck with me, but I love to support small and kind of bring in those kind of smaller makers as much as possible.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think that's what most stylists have, that kind of desire to inspire, but also spark an interest in something that, like, it's a bit different. It's really nice to, when I think in terms of pictures, because I come from a magazine background, and you want people to kind of look at a space or look at an image and go, oh, where's that from? Or, and just delve deeper sort of thing. And that's the kind of thing you get when you have small makers, where it's really unique pieces and really unusual finds. Everyone wants to have something no one else has got.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really
and when
fun.
I was at Not on the High Street, when I was doing the product development side of things, part of my job would be curating products that we would shoot. So yeah, that was always a really nice opportunity to kind of showcase like a nice breadth of product as well.
That sounds like really good fun.
Yeah, it was. So I've had lots of fun jobs, I won't lie. I'm quite lucky.
What would you say is the highlight of your career so far?
I guess I've had a couple from different remits. So off-piste is when I was an illustrator, I did a children's book, and it's about plastic pollution. So the author of the book is on the board of Surfers Against Sewage and did this event. So the King Charles actually had a copy of the book in his hand. So that was awesome, because yeah, obviously you don't expect the king to have your book in his hand. So that was a really cool project. But then I think in terms of styling, I think doing the Christmas food launch that I did last year, because it was actually probably one of the first styling jobs that I was booked on, and I was lead stylist. And there were so many moving parts, as you can imagine. It was huge. So just kind of going with the ebbs and flows of that project, things changed a lot along the way. And just seeing it come to fruition was really, really exciting. And there was, as I mentioned, each station had like a different theme. So there was just so much kind of cool sourcing and design involved in it that it was just, yeah, a really, really cool project to see it come to fruition.
How long did you have to kind of prep for that?
We were working on it for a couple of months. I think I started working on it from July time, but I think the agency had started doing a bit of prep before that. So that was, working on that project was really a highlight, just because yeah, it was such a big project to work on as my first sort of big styling job. And there was a huge team involved as well. We did like an overnight. So we sort of got into the venue at 11 and everything had to be set up by sort of 1, including like set building and stuff. So it was really, really interesting to see how that all works. I think when you're attending events, you don't really appreciate the amount of work and the pace that people need to get everything prepared for. So it was really, really interesting to work on, and definitely one I felt very proud of afterward.
I've done a couple of events like that, and it is like, you think, oh, it'll be me and my assistant, and then they say, and you have 3 hours to get everything in and up, and you're like, okay, I need 4 assistants, because it's just insane the amount of and the packing and lifting and carrying and bringing it in and then getting it set up and built, and that, you're absolutely right. No one really understands the sheer volume of work that goes into it. And that's just the once you're there, all the prep and the building and the designing and everything. It takes hours and hours
such
and
a
hours.
credit to the agency I work with. They really nail it. They know exactly what they're doing. It's like, they have such a kind of specific kind of itinerary and stuff, and like, just absolute pros. It's amazing seeing them work.
Yeah, and that gives you kind of support as well, isn't it? You're not a freelancer out on your own. You have the agency like in your corner, which is really good. Have you ever had any big work disasters?
I mean, I guess even on that project, there were things that, like things might have got packed in the wrong box and then we just couldn't find it when we were going there and stuff. So I think, you always have to be prepared that as much as you've got a plan, things might not go to plan. And I guess the best thing you can do is just coming up with a creative solution, or I think that's something you have to be mindful of, that even as prepared as you think you are, sometimes things happen that are kind of out of your control, and you might run out of time, or so I think I think that in particular that can happen a lot with events, and hopefully with interiors, I guess not so much at the moment, hopefully. Hopefully everything goes to plan. So at the moment with the interiors project I'm working on, I'm at the sort of sourcing stage, and then once the construction work is kind of finalised, I can go in and style it. So hopefully nothing too bad happens. But I would say the biggest things are just kind of when you're running out of time or something goes missing, and it's quite a crucial part. That can be, you have to think on your feet. But I think because I've worked on shoots a lot when I was at Not on the High Street in a kind of different remit, I guess I've always I've had a lot of experience with kind of just, problem solving in that sense. So, and I think one thing that just in more general sense is just when I say yes to too much, I think as a freelancer, you can overbook yourself, and that can be quite problematic as well.
That's a really good point. I think that's really like a very familiar thing for a lot of freelancers. You're kind of in the back of your head, you think, I may never work again. I have to say yes to everything. And you just take it all on. And this is a real ADHD thing, time blindness. You think it'll take 2 minutes, I'll be fine. It's like, no, it'll take 10 hours. You can't do 2 10-hour shifts in one day. You've got to give yourself some time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really important to kind of get a handle on that. But bending space and time. I had a coach once, and she used to say you need to bend space and time. So basically you don't tell yourself you can't do it, you tell yourself you can. And I'm like, no, I really shouldn't do that. It's enough. So if someone was to ask you how to get into interior styling, what would your advice be if they were completely new?
So I think even though I kind of sort of fell into the styling side of things, I've always committed to learning on the side. So as I mentioned, when I was at Not on the High Street, I had my own little vintage interiors Instagram. I would do courses in floristry. I'd do courses in art direction online. So I think learning as much as you can, self-initiated learning, is really, really important. And quite often you might think, oh, okay, well, I already knew that, which great. But there's often little snippets that you can pick up that you might not have thought about. So I think definitely self-development is a huge one. And just even if you're like not in the right job at the moment, just doing 1 or 2 of those courses on the side is always worthwhile, or like taking a short course at one of the University of Arts courses or something like that, for example. And then I think as well, just reaching out, like you say, to photography assistants and just saying, like, I really want to try this out. Would you want to do shoot? Because as you say, I think even if you're a professional, you're often working on client work and you don't get to do the fun things that you want to do. So definitely just broadening your network, getting involved, asking if you can assist, and learning what you need to learn where you do. I think as well, like even if you don't have a big following on your social media, you can use that as a tool to showcase what you're about. So it's obviously better if you get photos taken professionally by a photographer, but it's not that difficult to do maybe still life shot or something at home. And again, you can learn how the best practice for that by doing a course, for example. So I've done loads on Domestika. They're really, really affordable. They're like £10. And it's really interesting because on there you just hear about other people's career insights as well. So yeah, that would be my advice. Self-development through as many courses and just reaching out and building a network and trying to sort of do the projects that you want to be hired for, basically, and just coming up with kind of ideas.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Really good advice. I think that kind of need to learn new things all the time is very common with creative minds. I think there's always something, like I'm always scouring the courses and what I could do. I can't really fit anything else in right now. This is one of those, say no, Emma, that's enough. But I would love to do more courses and things. And I did say to myself, I should do one in January. And January's nearly over. It's gone so fast. But I think you're right. There's always something I could do with learning more of. And when I was at home and Woman and Home, when you're on a magazine, you get invited to all sorts of things. And I remember going to a lot of floristry workshops and I learned so much on them. And it was just something like doing a hand-tied bouquet. Yeah. It's completely transformed my shoots so that if I need to put flowers somewhere and make them bring a flower out, I'll put an extra flower in or whatever it is. I know how to do that now because of what I've learned in a one-day course. So I think that's really... They should come and do your courses, shouldn't they? Should come and do your workshops. Well, that's
I'm definitely doing more. So I'm going to do a still life painting one soon as well. I'm trying to think of lots of different things that I can do. But it's funny as well because I'll do the courses and then I think, oh, maybe I could do this. Maybe I can do a course online. So I think as well, you start getting all these ideas and then you just think, hang on a minute. Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm terrible at that. I have so many things I want to tick off my list and just need to get a little bit more organized and not try and achieve everything all in a week.
I'm the same. I listen to a podcast and someone has this really good idea and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that now. It's like, no, Emma, you're not going to go and write a book. You haven't got time to write a book or whatever it is. Or it'll be something really random and I'll be like, oh, they've had success in that. I'm going to have a go at that. That sounds brilliant. It's like,
anyone. It drives me mad.
Yeah,
just think.
Because it's because you're inspired though, isn't it? When people inspire you and then you can inspire other people, it's kind of, there's a real drive.
Definitely. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If you could do any job or work with anyone, what would your big dream job be?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough question, I guess. Well, to be honest, one thing I would really love to do would be to do the windows at Selfridges. They are just phenomenal. And I had to do a shop report for the agency that I work for. We did like a holiday kind of shop window report globally. So I was covering London and they were hands down the best Christmas windows. And they always are. And they're just so creative. And what I love is they showcase maybe the homeware range, but in such a kind of magical and creative way. That for me is like an absolute dream because I could just combine so many of my different skills doing something like that. And or if it wasn't for Selfridges, maybe bringing that kind of grandeur to somewhere else, a different brand, for example. But I just love the playful, untapped creativity of their windows. They're just incredible. So that would definitely be a dream. And then I think I'd also really like to work for this homeware designer called Heli Mardal. I'm not sure if you've seen her. She does these amazing bonbon style glassware. And they're very like Danish style, very, very cool. Their colour palettes are so beautiful. And I just think you could do something really fun with those as well. So any brands willing to do anything hyper creative, definitely would love to work with.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Right, I should share how people can find you. So you are a member of Inside Stylists, so you have a profile page there, but you obviously have social media. So you are on Instagram, you are at Studio _Dayze, and Dayze is spelled Dayze. And they can find you online at studiodayze.co.uk. I always try and make sure I remember to put that in during the conversation, but everything will be in the show notes and in the comments below, so people can find you nice and easily. I always end on the last question. What's next?
Yeah, so I think I'm obviously going to do lots more creative workshops this year, which is great. And I've got a couple of projects booked in. But I think what I really want to focus on this year is trying to do more photo shoots. When I was at Not High Street, I loved working on photo shoots, and in particular, the location ones. So I think definitely for me, I need to make that a sort of priority this year, just so I can get a bigger body of work together. But yeah, I've said to my sister when we were chatting on the phone the other day that I wanted 2025 to be my year of colour. So I'm just going to take that mindset and bring that to whatever I can, really, whether it's like work or clothing or whatever. So yeah, just try and make it as colourful as possible through anything that comes my way, basically.
That sounds really, really happy. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been really inspiring to listen to you and hear all your ideas. And it's always it's very powerful to hear other people's creativity journeys and the way people's minds work. I think you're going to do great, colourful things this year.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Be great. Thanks.